Hello everyone, greetings from the 7th of Nero, AJ here, with probably a slightly different and more speculative take on the military traditions of the cultures of Moran and the Iron Kingdoms. As a result, this is genuinely, unlike previous occasions I say so, going to be a shorter, no pun intended given the subject material, a bit shorter than normal due to the reduced amount of source content which looks at this topic, though I'm sure there's something I've missed along the way. While it is definite the elves have a longer history of conflict, whether internally or with the other races of what was then a habitable Central Moran, records of these times and the technology and tactics used are lost to us, along with much else thanks to the Cataclysm. Thus, it is the dwarves of Rhul who can provide the greatest wealth of retrospective study in how aspects of warcraft have evolved, or not, as the case may be on occasion. The Feud of Ages is, undoubtedly, the most ancient war which saw extensive chronicling of any sort, and it is from that which dwarven commanders down the generations have learned and established their norms of military practice, as well as no few of their cultural norms. To say they have a long memory is indeed an understatement. Even so, while those lessons were those taken to heart the most, the rise of humanity, the Mulga Confederation and its successors, and the threats posed by other powers of the Moran and the Iron Kingdoms compelled the peoples of Rhul to adapt and evolve as would need to occur to any race were they to ensure their continued stability and survival. And adapt they did, and it is for this reason that out of every nation in Western Moran, only Rhul has remained immune to prolonged enemy incursion, otherworldly or otherwise. At heart, the Rhulic peoples are a bit of a paradoxical folk, divided amongst themselves, but united the moment something threatens their nation, rivals and all. All domestic grievances forgotten until the enemies of the dwarves are defeated. This is taken to such an extent that though Rhulic mercenaries, even from the same parent company, can often be employed by both belligerents of a conflict and be aware of this fact, the Rhulic captains themselves are fastidious in ensuring they never face their fellow Rhul folk in combat, whether direct or indirect. The numerous clans which comprise the Rhulic dwarven population each have some form of militia, resolutely and equally loyal to clan lord and kingdom. The smaller and less influential clans have interdependent alliances so as to be able to fend off the attentions of the more powerful clans, while in turn many of these larger clans, up to and including the oldest 13 houses who claim direct descent from the Great Fathers, have networks of vassals to maintain a balance of power amongst themselves. Modernized infantry forms the core of their forces, armed in a fashion similar to those who can mass-produce arms which use the latest technology. Hammers of the Forge Guard and the carbine and shield-equipped High Shield Gun Corps form the two bodies of troops the peoples of the Iron Kingdoms see most often away from Rhul. They are supported by artillery, as well as other specialist units. Within Rhul itself, however, such trends continue with changes to armaments as suits a clan's preferences, even if they rarely stray too far from convention. Thus, these militias themselves are, on the face of things, somewhat familiar, if still distinct, to those of us who are not dwarven. Like the militaries of the other large nations, the Rhul folk have a definite structure, based around companies mustered at the clan level, whose hierarchy reflects that of the clan's nobility, with clan lord as nominal commander, though some defer this responsibility to the clan's senior champion, while the other champions assume other positions of leadership in military affairs. Clan companies, with more powerful clans mustering more than one if they have the numbers to do so, send their freshly trained initiates off to join the mercenary forces or other units which see extensive service abroad, with such notable units as the 33rd Hammerful High Shield Gunner Corps, to gain valuable campaign experience before returning to their parent clan and company to pass this knowledge on. Due to the esteem in which Rhulic culture holds its mercenaries, many outfits are fully endorsed for campaigning by the Moot of the 100 Houses, the ruling body of Rhul. Such is this cultural relationship, the Moot's primary resource for mercenaries who serve within the Iron Kingdoms is essentially a government organisation, the Seer Forge Commission, which oversees all related activity, from recruitment to agreeing contracts of all forms. And though far from all dwarves or the clans from which they hail sign up with the Commission, it nonetheless provides the greatest opportunity for military service abroad. As to ranks and command structures, these features are much the same as those used by the other nations. One notable departure, however, is the rank of general, which in Rhulic military circles is not a substantive rank, but rather a dignity. Only the Stone Lords have the privilege of elevating Rhulic corps commanders in such a way, but it is with much gravity when it is conferred, always upon an officer of proven skill and victorious record, who is then given the authority to lead the combined forces of said Stone Lord's clan and clans they are allied to. Accompanying their dwarven neighbours are the Ogrun, who, for all their fewer numbers next to their compatriots, are nonetheless fully integrated in the Rhulic armed forces, most often as members of a clan. Theirs is a relationship which has spanned thousands of years, stemming from agreements among their respective leaders which exchanged Ogrun independence, but not autonomy, notably, for subordinate status as part of a greater Rhulic polity. Ogrun culture and the mentality instilled in its people was valued by the dwarves, while in turn they gladly reflect dwarven mores and standards of honour. Thus, dwarf and Ogrun serve alongside each other just as they live side by side throughout the counties of Rhul, though it is rare for the latter to ascend particularly high up the chain of command, for captains and generals, both within Rhul itself and among the mercenary companies throughout the Iron Kingdoms, are invariably dwarves. While it would be easy enough to ascribe this to the subordinate role the Ogrun carry out in Rhulic society, the concept of Korune in Ogrun culture makes their loyalty beyond question, at times much more so than the loyalty of even the dwarves themselves. Consequently, the Ogrun follow the commands of those dwarven officers they respect happily and without complaint. Given their bulk, though, the ever-logical and pragmatic dwarves assign heavy weapons and similar combat duties to their Ogrun peers. Thus, there are some units which are exclusively Ogrun, such as the Assault Corps, for they can fulfill a function the dwarves are not so skilled in or capable of carrying out. As one might expect of a race of stouter average stature, the dwarves of Rhul eschew the use of horses, except as pack animals, but even then many tend to use steamjacks such as the Grunback Runner or its variants. But this is not to say the Rhulic forces lack any and all cavalry. It is simply rarer and isolated to certain regions where suitable mounts might be found. Said mount is the Winter Argus, more commonly encountered in the frigid lowlands of the northeast. In military circles, Far Hollow is the most well-known for its elite Argus cavalry, which forms the senior unit of its standing garrison. Alongside the frostbreath and canine strength brought by the twin-headed beasts, the Far Hollow Beastmasters, as they are often otherwise known, wield scatterguns, as befits their preference for close combat, to finish what their mounts begin, and vice versa. Fortunately for the powers of the Iron Kingdoms, the Argus cavalry of Rhul rarely ventures abroad, for now at least. Away from this more mundane form of warcraft, but without delving too deeply into the warcaster traditions of the dwarves, something which is not found among the Ogrun, the arcane arts are, like most other features of Rhulic life, heavily regulated. In this sphere, such regulation is provided by the brand of Addendum, so named for the Rhulic deity for magic and secrets. Rhulic battle mages are rarely seen outside of their homeland, but squads of the so-called Tactical Arcanist Corps have been employed on occasion, and if their training and selection process is anything to go by, the standards the brand of Addendum set are as exacting, or even more so, than their peers and rivals of the other kingdoms of Imoran. Such standards are not without a counterbalance, however, for the equipment carried and wielded by the Tactical Arcanist Corps is of a utility and standard which is exceedingly rare on the battlefield. Perhaps more than any other nation of Imoran, the dwarves take the importance of military intelligence very seriously, and seek to formalize it as much as any other aspect of their existence and daily lives. This, at least in part, explains why no other power in Imoran, or out of Imoran for that matter, has seen any measure of success in conquering any Rhulic territory. Thus, to Clan Jord, descended from the patron of stealth and Master Lurker, goes the heavy responsibility of making sure subterfuge undertaken by Rhulic agents abroad goes to maintaining their homeland's territorial integrity. It is an open secret that this is their duty, and while every clan is otherwise aware of it, ceremony dictates they do not publicly acknowledge it. So open is it, even foreigners such as myself know of some of their activities. Unfortunately for them, however, they are at odds with the organisation known as the Glommering, who profit from the trade of secrets among the clans within Rhul. For few among the clan lords consider each other friends, and while they would not stoop so low as to compromise the safety of their race and nation to gain an advantage against their political rivals, that wars but for the occasional minor skirmish have generally been quite far from Rhul's borders means rival clans have long been accustomed to conducting spycraft against each other. Unsurprisingly, this service has long been provided at great expense by the Glommering. Fortunately for Rhul and Clan Jord, however, the Glommering are careful not to overstep their bounds and allow clan feuds to descend into outright familial wars, understanding this is neither profitable nor good for their existence. For the moots of the 100 houses accept their activities, and even have a stake in them at times, but all know service to the Great Fathers comes before all else. Nevertheless, it is no surprise that, like the brand of Addendum, both Clan Jord and the Glommering are particularly reverent towards the Great Father Addendum. But with the reappearance of the Iron Kingdom's enemy long past, the Rhul folk will surely remember how even this ancient adversary failed to make inroads into their country. Even so, the Moot and clans will be very wary about renewed efforts to expand upon previous conquests in Amoran.